So, hello everybody. This is Bruno again, and we're back with our Broad Queer Day number 2. And this afternoon we have Sergio Viula. Sergio will be talking about how to introduce LGBT issues in the classroom, both planned and improvised. And Sergio is a teacher at Cultura Inglesa with a master's degree in linguistics, discourse analysis, and a college degree in philosophy, both from UERJ. And he's also an independent LGBT activist and blogger. So over to you, Sergio.
Hello, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. I had the opportunity of being here last year, and it was a pleasure too.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
I still remember that time. It was really amazing. And
Yeah.
I was a little bit anxious, although I'm very talkative, very outgoing. I'm also anxious. So I was looking forward to the event and afraid that something could go wrong, like using my slides or something, because
Yeah.
the other time I had to use a cell phone connection, and then I couldn't show the slides. But thankfully, everything's working fine, and it's a pleasure to be with you again.
Wonderful, wonderful, Sergio. So you can start sharing your screen, please.
Okay, so just 1 second. And a moment. All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to put it as large. All right. My topic is how to introduce LGBT issues in the classroom, both planned and improvised. And I have been hearing other people's lectures today, and I have to say that I enjoyed all of them. I saw all that I could, because there were some that happened, I think, at the same time, but all that I could I saw, and I love them. Thiago, who has just spoken, said a lot of things that I think will be like communicating with my lecture too. So the point is this: how to introduce LGBT issues in the classroom, both planned and improvised. And I love when it happens out of the blue, when there is no plan. Honestly, I love it, because it means that it came from the students. Yeah, they made a move towards it. I didn't do anything to provoke that, or if I did something, it was something very little, almost impossible to notice, but somebody grasped it and then constructed on that. I love when it happens, because it doesn't seem that I have an agenda and I have, an objective traced with care and all the steps, because I have some kind of point to make. I want to convince somebody of something. So I love when it happens spontaneously. But there is nothing wrong in planning. There is nothing wrong in organizing activities so that we can talk about LGBT issues, because there should be no worry, although there are, but there should be no worry about the meaning of inclusion and equality, including LGBT people, of course. And as our first guest talked about in the beginning of the day, it's a very special day today, because it's the Human Rights Day, and LGBT rights are human rights, and everything that's human, beautiful, healthy, what else? Lovable, can be introduced in the class, and LGBT issues are not different from that. So we can plan, but I love when it happens without my direct interference. So teaching English is not only about learning grammar and vocabulary, that's something obvious, I suppose. It's also about developing both critical thinking and social skills in and through the language, because we are not, and it's impossible to be out of the language. We are always in the language. We are born in the language. We grow in the language. So language trespasses everything. Language is something overwhelming. It cannot be avoided. And through the language, we can construct and we can deconstruct. So I think that in an English class, which is a class exactly about language and what we can do through language, we should have opportunities to talk about these issues and construct a better society, of course, beginning from that individual that's in front of us in the classroom. So why approach LGBT plus issues in class? Thiago gave very good reasons in his lecture. He talked about the violence that's sweeping Brazil, all over Brazil. It's incredible how many people have been affected by violence against LGBT people, including LGBT citizens themselves, but also families, and also the family of the aggressors, because we forget that when there is a homophobic or transphobic attack, there are two people at least involved there. One is a victim, the other one is an aggressor. But behind the victim and the aggressor, there are families, there are other people, there are friends who will suffer too, because one is going to die probably, or go to hospital, or be afraid for a lifetime because of that attack, and the other one probably will go to jail, or will be revenged by someone else who will not accept such a violence and will produce another deal of violence. So violence produces more violence, and we have to stop that cycle. I think that education and teaching English is part of it, is the best way to avoid violence and to fight, in a very good sense of the word fight, any kind of anger, hatred, and other seeds really, that will, if we don't hinder them from doing that, become huge trees of hate and death. So I think we should approach, because of the violence that's going on, but we also need to see the LGBT person as a person who has the right to live, but also the right to self-fulfillment. And an English class should work as an indoor lab for outdoor experiences. So there are people in our classes that are LGBT, and they have to have their space preserved. They have to have their voice heard. They have to enjoy the freedom that other people who are not LGBT can also enjoy. But everything that happens in a class is not something artificial, as many of us, or maybe some of us, could imagine. Whatever happens in a class is real life. Many people like to make this distinction between virtual world and real world, but everything is real world. The difference is that there is something between me and my interlocutor when I am using the internet. And the thing is the computer or the cell phone, but the interaction is real. There are two real people. No matter how much they fake about themselves, that's real. It's happening really. People get upset, people get offended, people feel happy, people produce violence, people destroy other people's lives through the internet many times, but they also construct a lot of good in the world. So if it's real in the world of the internet and the digital world, so it's also real in our classes. People are there, and their feelings are there, and their background is there too. So we cannot think that by saying that it's an indoor lab, it's something different from reality. It's just a little smaller in terms of the dimensions that the world can have. But everything that happens in our class can reflect, for good or bad, in the outside world. And these people are going to work and study in other places and have families. And if they don't learn to exercise their not only tolerance, but their love of diversity, they are not going to be good citizens, at least not as fully as we would like them to be. So I think that we should face the classroom as a lab where we develop all of that, but with a very strong connection with the world outside, both of them being totally realistic somehow. The case of looking gay, I'd like to share an experience that I had with some students in class. It was a basic 4, I think, group, which is like, let me see how old they are usually, 13, yes, 13 years old, 12 years old. They are very young. During a revision with an early teen group, students were given a sheet of paper with some pictures and 5 verbs of sense: look, smell, taste, sound, and feel. They were supposed to describe the pictures using those verbs. Some of the expected sentences were, they look happy, they look enthusiastic, they look joyful, whatever, because it was about a group of people, a pair, yes, of people. And something unexpected happened. And that's when I say that the unplanned is very welcome. A boy says in a tone of debauchery, they look gay. The whole class bursts out in laughter as another boy makes a not so innocent comment. That's when another boy turns around and stands up to the ongoing mockery. He says, hey guys, you are that bothered just because those boys might like something that you don't? Give me a break. And when the boy said that, the boys involved in the bad taste joke probably thought, now we're in trouble. The teacher is going to come up with some kind of reprimand. But to their surprise, I just added the sentence, they look gay, to the list on the board. After that, I said the following. Did you know there is a history behind every word we use? They looked puzzled. I went on. Yes, there is. And the word gay has one of its own. Actually, gay used to mean happy or joyful. So one could very well say, it's such a gay day today, meaning it's such a happy day today. I even said something else. I said, someone might say, I feel so gay today, meaning I feel so happy today. And then I add, as you see, nobody would think of homosexuality at that moment. And then someone asked, and why does gay mean homosexual today? This was my answer at the moment, because the word homosexual was invented by a researcher to refer to people who felt sexually attracted to people of the same sex. As time went by, it was used to disqualify people. So when those people got tired of being mistreated, they took hold of the word gay and started sending the world the following message. We are okay with our sexuality and happy to be ourselves, and we demand respect. Nowadays, anywhere in the world, if you say you're gay, everybody understands that you love someone of the same sex. Isn't it amazing how the new meaning gained ground? And then one student said, and there is also the rainbow flag, very happily at the moment. To which I replied, true enough. Have you noticed that a rainbow is made of many colors, never one alone, or only one? So is the world. People are different, but they can and should live in harmony. Why don't you talk a little more about that in pairs? And that's when I assign pair work so that they could talk about the issue. That's when I asked them to talk to their partners about homophobia and other forms of prejudice, such as racism, chauvinism, explaining how they felt about them. So during the conversation, they should talk whatever came to their minds and say how they felt about each one of these issues. They talked for 4 minutes, after which I resumed to the revision class without further ado, because it was a revision day and there was a test the next day. So I could not make it into a very long discussion. But that small thing that happened in class gave me a chance to work on vocabulary, how the language changes as time goes by, how people make those changes, either willing or unwillingly. In this case, of course, there was a will to make a change, and it was socially relevant, it was linguistically relevant, and they also learned a little more about respect, about respecting each other. But I wouldn't have been able to do all of this if there weren't a picture on the board that gave them some kind of insight about that. The picture was not created by me, it was not chosen by me, it was chosen by the institution where I worked for that purpose of the revision, probably without thinking about that. But as somebody else, I forgot his name, said before when he was talking about books and illustrations, we don't have to be totally obvious about things. Sometimes just a subtle aspect of diversity in a picture, in an illustration, might provoke other thoughts and maybe foster conversation on the issue. And that's exactly what happened on that day. But from my point of view, rapport is paramount. When the relation between teacher and student relies on confidence, everything that happens in class can be used as an opportunity for personal growth, and nobody will feel at easy to bully whoever. That's a very important point that I'd like to make here. I cannot talk about such sensitive issues for so many people, such intimate issues, if I don't have a certain level of rapport with my students. If they don't trust me, how can I come up with this kind of thing? So it's important to have this relation. And these days, another case happened that I didn't write here on the slides. It's very recent. It happened in a group of teenagers who are intermediate, and they are about 14 years old. A girl was mocking a boy because of his hair. And I noticed that she had already made some comment on the way another boy had said something that she thought was a little bit girlish. So I took advantage of the moment, and with a little bit of good humor, I approached the case. Yes, I told the boy who had the hair a little bit messy in the opinion of that girl, and I said, if I were you, I would have my hair in every style I wanted, in every color I wanted, because you know what? There will be one day when you feel like doing something to your hair, and the only thing that you'll be able to do is shave it off like I do. I've gone bald, practically totally bald. Not totally, there is some hair, but I have to shave it to make it a little better than it would be if I had my hair a little longer on one side and totally lacking on the other side. Then they laughed a lot because of this conversation about being bald, going bald, and using myself as an example and laughing at myself because of that without any reservation. And then I said, there is no wrong hair, no right hair, as there is no wrong or right other aspects of our personality, like, for example, gender, sexuality, sexual orientation, blah, blah, blah. And then I started talking about that too. And I came up with an example from the media at the moment to illustrate what I was saying. And that's when another girl, who's a very good student, she speaks very good English, and she writes wonderfully. She came up and said, you know what, teacher? I think that we should not label people, either gay or straight or bisexual or anything else, because people might like one thing today, another thing tomorrow. They don't have to be the same all their lives long. They could love someone of the same sex today, someone from the other sex tomorrow, and then come back to this same-sex relationship again. Why not? And then I thought about how fluid we are in so many terms, in so many aspects, and that girl had grasped that so wonderfully and spoke of that in such a nice way, in such a wise way for her age. She's about 13. I praised her in front of the group, and of course went back to the point of the class, but not before praising her for that thought, which can also encourage other students to open their minds and be a little more generous to other people and fair to. Providing students with opportunities to discuss LGBT issues in class. We have to keep it simple. And I've brought just some helpful tips. I don't want to be any, let's say, theoretical, maybe bring something absolutely novel. No, it's something absolutely down to the earth, you know. Have students discuss LGBT-related current news. It's a very good way of starting it. And that's when I provoke it. When it doesn't happen only because they want to, but because I provoked them somehow. I tease them. For example, I have a conversation group every Wednesday. So every class, before I begin the class, I give them a chance to talk about whatever they want, from the media, from their experience during the week, whatever issue they come up with. And they can share their stories, give their opinions, ask their partners what they think about that before we really go through the conversation issue of the day. And usually they discuss news. And the news is full of issues about LGBT people, the LGBT community, and things related to them. So there is always something coming up. And I have a student who I think, but I cannot be sure of that, I think he's also gay. And it makes my life easier because besides being gay, he has a very good worldview. And he studies cinema. So cinema is full of good examples of relationships and the fight for rights and prejudice, etc. So usually he brings up some news, discuss the news, and gives some examples with the films that he has watched or studied somehow at university. And that enriches the discussion. I always pick from that and make some comments too, but I leave it up to them more, of course, than up to myself, because they have to speak. They are there to speak. But there is no problem in adding something. Sometimes even making a very short comment, a very quick comment on something that they said, either to add something or to praise them, or even to correct them if there is something to be corrected in a very good way, in a very gentle way. Use a series of slides for conversation. It's another tip. Yes, why not preparing the slides before? Yes, everybody here is very good at producing slides, as I have seen today. So prepare some slides. The activity could approach things like same-sex marriage, violence against LGBT plus people, homoparental families, transgender people, homophobia and transphobia, etc. And remember that specific vocabulary probably will be needed. You can provide it beforehand, or you can just go constructing that with them as they need. Another tip, use snippets of series, films, literature, and music as teasers for conversation and also for writing tasks, because there's a lot to be said about these cultural products, either films or series, and principally these two. But there is also a lot of things in literature and music. I remember one day when I asked my students to talk about their favorite films, series, or books, and some of them came up with books that had something to do with LGBT plus issues. And it was very nice to see people reacting. Some loved the book, others didn't like the book very much. But you may not like a book, not because it's LGBT plus, but because the book is not well written, or it's not your type of, your idea of fun, your type of book. So we cannot criticize people when they don't like that. For example, if somebody comes up with Brokeback Mountain, a film that was released a few years ago, there might be people who loved Brokeback Mountain and people who didn't like it. Not only because it was LGBT plus, which would be the case of some people who nourish prejudice, but also because maybe that's not the type of film they like. And they can come up with another one that they really enjoyed, and it's not the same kind of film or book, whatever. We should construct on that. We should use all of that as raw matter for our job. And writing tasks can also be included. I'll talk about them later. You can assign speeches on LGBT-related issues, like I did one day, and a student of mine came up with the whole bibliography of an author whose name I forgot now. I think it was John Green, if I'm not wrong. And he also brought one of the books written by this author that was based on a gay couple, kind of gay romance. There was a gay romance in the novel, and it was very useful. And it was not the focus of his speech, but it was inside there. So these are some of the most thought-provoking activities students can experience in a class. I mean, speeches, because they have to produce it, and they have to present it, and then they have to discuss it. And it's interesting because you can provide them with the topics or let them choose. Yeah. Some of the topics I would like to suggest, just as a matter of having a starting point, are same-sex marriage is a human right, the challenges of being transgender, why people get out of the closet, including online, and there are many cases of online experiences of coming out, including children to their parents. It's very interesting. You can find them online if you search. LGBT plus icons in history, LGBT plus refugees fleeing from persecution in their homeland. It's something that worries a lot of people, and then we could use that as a topic, suggesting that as a topic. But there's a note that I'd like to make here. After each speech, you may want to hold a class debate on the ideas presented so that the person who is giving a speech is not the only one talking in the classroom. Keep it always friendly and praise your students' effort, or efforts, better saying. You can also use the opportunity to brush up their English with delayed correction in the form of comments and feedback as soon as they go back to their seats in a very gentle way. And you can even expand from that point in terms of meaning, use of the words, concepts, a lot of things. So be wise, be creative, do it even better than what I'm suggesting you to do here. Fine. What about developing writing? There is something wrong there. I misspelled writing. What about developing writing skills with LGBT-themed tasks? All types of writing tasks can be used, depending on your objectives and your student's level. For example, a story. Students can tell a story, real or imaginary, including LGBT plus characters or related issues. You could, for instance, ask them to remake famous fairy tales so as to include sexual diversity or gender identity. And students can do it very easily, sometimes even speaking. But they could write about that. Yes. Why, for example, a princess needing, or a princess in need of a prince to save her? Why not the opposite? Yes, a princess saved by another princess, or a female hunter, or a prince in need of someone to help him, and suddenly another prince comes to rescue him, and there is love, and there is romance, and there is kissing if they want to put it there, or even like, for example, the Three Little Pigs. Why not one of them being gay? One of the brothers there is gay, and then give it all the characteristics and put any words that you feel like in the mouth of that pig, and the other ones having very intelligent dialogues, among them. It could be interesting. Why not? There are many possibilities. I'm just here airing some of them. A review. Students could write a review on a film they watched or a book they read which involved LGBT plus issues or characters. That's something that they have to do sometimes during the course, the course period. A letter. Imagine a friend has mixed feelings about coming out to his or her parents. We could say their parents to avoid general language here. What advice would you give your friend? So this would make the writer think a lot about what's involved in coming out. And if they are not gay, they will develop sympathy. That's what we expect, of course. An article. A teenage magazine is receiving articles on the ups and downs of being LGBT plus in today's world. Imagine how many things they can come up with, especially if they are creative and they like writing. They will go on the internet, they will search for information. It will develop a lot of critical thinking and sympathy too, probably. A proposal. Your school does not have a program to promote LGBT plus inclusion and equality. Write a proposal recommending concrete actions to fight prejudice and promote full inclusion of LGBT plus students and staff. That's interesting for them to think about the school environment and all of that. A report. A website related to social issues wants to learn more about latest conquests by the LGBT plus community and the remaining challenges. Write a report on what has got better and what still needs improvement from a political, social, economic standpoint. Of course, this is not for very small children. Of course not. This is for more advanced students, at least intermediate students. But note, before assigning a writing task, it's advisable to show them what register to use, either formal, informal, or neutral. There is an or here, but my computer corrected it to Portuguese and I didn't see it. How to structure the composition in terms of text organization, if they should use opening and closing expressions or not, useful language, etc. So, although the activity aims at provoking thoughts about diversity and gender equality or gender identity, we cannot lose focus of the linguistic gains that this activity should provide them with. So we must focus on that, of course. But we can use technology. Technology is everywhere now. Tablets, for example, and Skype are very useful. For example, tablets. You could ask students to create a campaign for the inclusion of LGBT plus students in their schools. It could include posters, videos recorded through filmmaking apps, etc., using the tablet. I remember one day I was talking about abusive relationships with my students of the intermediate level. And it was an intermediate level. I forgot now the level, but it was an intermediate level. And I asked them to talk about that. What kind of advice they would give to a person who is involved in an abusive relationship. And then they had an app. I forgot the name of the app now. I'm terrible in terms of memory. But the app would give them some possibilities of characters to be created, and they could record their voices and make the characters speak what they were saying during the recording. And the project was so nicely done, it was so beautifully done, that I decided to take it to other groups so that they could have a vote. And they should vote for the best one in their opinions, in terms of content, in terms of layout, in terms of pronunciation, etc. Fluency, and everything related to the accuracy of the English language in the recordings. And it was very fun because besides my group who had been involved in producing it, my other groups that were voting for that were also involved, and I had them discuss the same topics, saying if they agreed or disagreed, if they thought they could add anything to that, or if they would withdraw anything from that video. And it was very fun and very useful. It was not LGBT plus related, but it could have been. Why not adjusting the issue to also reach this kind of purpose? Now, Skype is another one that you can use. You could also have a Skype session with an educator or another sort of professional who is committed. There is something missing there too. Who is committed to LGBT plus inclusion, and have students interact with them. Besides the interaction on cam, you could very well hold a debate with the students alone on the guest views as soon as the cam is off. So they are talking to the guest is sharing his opinions, experiences, views. When it's over, students will be talking about the experience itself and also add more to what they saw during the session and what they said, or what they felt like saying, but they didn't have the courage to say. They were intimidated by the fact that there was a camera there, or the guy was American or British, whatever. Yeah, so it can be extended, yes, in terms of speaking opportunities. Opportunities have been maximized by the overwhelming number of posts on social media and in the mainstream media. Take advantage of that to foster conversation, which will include LGBT issues. That's very important. For example, Prince William, he gave an interview to Attitude Magazine. It was the first time a member of the royal family spoke to an LGBT magazine, an L. And then it's interesting because he's the Prince of England. The language that we are working on and with is English. Who can say that it's not, appropriate? It would be wonderful to develop something on that. For example, another case of English-speaking country. The USA Supreme Court banned Trump's ban on transgender people in the military forces. Now, November 21st. Why not using that? Maybe bringing a cartoon like this would be enough to start something. But much more than that can be done, of course. Another piece of news that's important. Austria and Australia have just recognized same-sex marriage. It was this week, one on Tuesday, another one on Thursday. Imagine if you have a group on Thursday, if you have a group on Tuesday and Thursday, on each day of the class that you have, there was a wedding recognition situation in the world. That's an amazing thing. And now there is this map of the countries where same-sex marriage is legal. Here they show North America and South America. Then they maximize Europe. They show Oceania, a little bit of Africa. The only exception, unfortunately, is South Africa, the only place where people can have their rights recognized in terms of marital status. But you don't see that same advancement in Asia, for example. So it's interesting to show them that the rights to marry someone you love, whoever the person is or whatever the sex is, has advanced, but there is a lot to be done. And if they notice, if they pay attention to the map, they will see that most of the countries, if not all, that have adopted gay marriage are usually richer, more educated, and they have a kind of a friendly approach or passionate approach to human rights. That's something very interesting to show to. There are plenty of material available and a whole new world of opportunities. To conclude, I'd like to highlight the following. First, the point is not whether you should bring in the classroom diversity or not. It's already there. Just go and build upon it. There are gay students, there are lesbian students, there are bisexual students, there are transgender students, but there are students who are not totally sure of what's going on with them, especially when they are very young. We don't need to impose anything on anyone, but we could and should give everybody room to be themselves without fear. I think that the worst thing that can happen in a class is being afraid of being yourself, because you don't produce, you don't grow, and you don't feel like coming back next class. So if we want to be there for them and have them there too, back there, class after class, we should create a friendly atmosphere where everybody can be accepted and cherished. Now, students who feel at ease to discuss the topics previously mentioned will learn and produce a lot more than those who feel threatened by the possibility of being targeted by bullies. And we cannot be tolerant to bullying at all. Later on, I'll talk a little bit more about that thing. If we fail to provide students with opportunities to improve their English and enhance their social skills, we will have failed at the very core of our role as educators. That's a very important thing. We cannot let the chance to be relevant to their growth simply escape. You know, we have to do whatever we can. Of course, considering the limits of our profession too, because everybody is constrained by some type of limit. Nobody is unlimited. But we should do whatever is at our reach to facilitate their growth, their learning, their socialization, their facing up to the world outside, etc. You are creative and resourceful. Go find your own way to make a difference. These are only tips. This is not a formula. This cannot be followed inch by inch, you know, to achieve the goals that you have yourself and that your students probably have themselves as to their future or to their present. When I was talking about bullying, I said I'm going to talk about bullying again because I highly recommend this film, Wonder. In Portuguese, it was named Extraordinário. If you are in Brazil, don't look for Wonder, look for Extraordinário. But you have to watch this film. I saw it yesterday with my partner, André, and we cried during the film several times. I myself cried at least 5 times. And when I looked to his face, when I looked at his face just beside me, he was also crying. Tears were rolling down because we could take several lessons from this film to our lives. We could make connections between our childhood our school time, I could make connections with my teaching job, with my teaching practices. I could make connections with my students themselves. I could see some of my students in those characters. And what's most extraordinary about Wonder is that it's not only the boy who has a facial problem that is a wonder in the film. His father, his mother, his sister, other people who get in touch with them, they are incredibly thought-provoking. So I suggest, I really recommend that you watch this film if you're a teacher, and then use the boy's experience to extend it a little bit or a lot more to other sides, to other areas or fields in which prejudice can take place. And think of what you can do. There is a director in the film, the director of the school the boy attended. That's an amazing, good example, a role model. You could take a lot of lessons from him too. What I can say, just to give you a chance to ask questions too, is that being a teacher is something absolutely amazing. It's something that I love doing. Let me just go back here to my screen. Provides us with an opportunity to grow personally, to grow as a person, and to help our students grow too. I don't know if I'll be appearing here. I hope so, because only my picture here, close to the beach, is appearing. But that's because it's on my profile on Google. Now I'm here. So it's something amazing to be a teacher. I love being a teacher, but not because I have answers to everybody or all the answers that people could ask for. No, a lot far from that. It's because I learn more than anyone in the classroom. And it's been a pleasure to be with you again here. It's been a pleasure to share these thoughts that are so simple with you. And I can say that, all I can say is that some of my students who are not my students anymore, they sometimes send me messages saying how much they loved being in class and talking about everything, having that atmosphere of freedom and respect. And this is something that makes me really proud, not only of myself, but of them too, because we cannot do anything alone. It's something constructed, you know, as a group. But the good thing that remains from all of this is that I left a mark on them, and they left a mark on each other, and all of them left a mark on me. And this mark is something fertile. It's producing other good things a lot further than the classroom, a lot longer ahead in the future. So I encourage you guys not to be afraid, but to make a difference. There are many conservatives, homophobic, transphobic, racist, chauvinistic people around. We don't need to feed stupidity. We need to feed intelligence, creativity, respect, self-fulfillment. That's our job. If we don't do that, we are being like cooperators with those people. I don't want to cooperate with such an awful thing as chauvinism, fascism, all kinds of prejudice. I want to build a whole new world, and it begins in the classroom for sure, if not in the family. Sometimes, most of the time, is in the family. But classrooms are sometimes an extension of the family. We have to make the classroom something bigger than the family. Otherwise, the students wouldn't need to go to school. They could be in the family house forever. And that would be enough. They come to school to have new experiences. Let's provide them with them and leave it up to them to follow whatever track they want to. But we are not going to be away from the moment when they are, we are not going to withdraw from that moment when they are building themselves in our presence. They are not away from us. They are not far away from us. They are near us. How can I be there so near and so far? No, I'll be there near them and very close to them. Also, affectively speaking, with all respect and with all, with a cheerful heart, let's say, whatever differences I may find ahead. That's it. Simple, okay, straight straightforward, but this is what like.
Wow, Sergio, very inspiring. Oh my God. You almost brought me to tears, you know, man. It's very empowering to listen to someone speaking so dearly about teaching students, because at the end of the day, we're teaching humans, you know, how to become more human. So it's precious what we do, and it lasts a lifelong, you know, and other lives that may come in the future, because what we do in class is not measurable by any kind of material or anything that can be bought. So kudos to you, Sergio. Wonderful, wonderful. Let me see if I have any questions from people online. So questions, guys? Let's just see if someone wants to ask a question to Sergio.
While people are still thinking, let me just say one thing.
Go ahead.
Sometimes people are afraid of what parents can say. Of course, there might be parents who are the changes that are going on in the world, including LGBT equality. But there are parents who really cheer the way we treat their children. I think the way we treat them makes a big difference. Yesterday, I was in a graduation of a young learners group, and one father came to me and said, Sergio, you know what? What we really need most is passionate teachers. And I can see that passion in the way you talk about the children, in the way you talk about the work they have done. And I was not talking about the work I had done with them. I was talking about the work they had done, you know. And it was so nicely done because it was a book project. And they did it so beautifully. And I told the parents, I said, many times children listen to parents and they think there is something wrong with them because parents say, you have nothing to do, you just have to study. How can you get such bad marks or anything? But they don't notice how overwhelmed these children have been because of neurotic schools that keep them there from 7 o'clock a.m. up to 5 p.m. And then they send lots of homework, lots of projects, and they have tests like 4 or 5 a day when it's a week test. And the week test is like every 2 weeks, let's say. So how can these people breathe? And then I said, looking at this project so well done, I have to say it's all their merit, but it wouldn't have been possible without the parents' help too. And then after that, everything that we talked about, the project, the father came to me and said that. And sometimes these parents, they meet me, they don't know about my involvement in LGBT issues. And then they come across a documentary where I spoke like I forgot the name of the channel, Globosat, for example, that sometimes is repeating the documentary, or something like an interview to a magazine, like Veja magazine. They interviewed me like 1 or 2 months ago, and then the story came up again. And then sometimes parents see that, and they say, wow, I didn't know that about Sergio. How amazing. What an experience. Instead of saying, my God, my son is in the hand of a crazy man. No. How nice. This aspect about your life. And this is something that also includes not only the child, but also the parents, friends, you know. And you have to be open about the opportunities to foster growth, either being gay or not, because a teacher doesn't need to be gay to teach children having an inclusive view, an inclusive approach, because I am not straight, and I can deal very well with straight issues, sometimes even giving counseling to people who are straight and come up to me asking me for help. So why not the opposite too? Yes.
Yes, exactly, Serge. This is very, very interesting. And what about having gay students? Have you ever had any gay students?
Yes. I had some students who were gay, and they didn't come out of the closet to me while they were my students, but they called me later when they were not my students anymore, and they said, something to tell you. I'd like to talk to you. Can you meet me at McDonald's, for example, at time blah, blah, blah? And then we set the date. I went there thinking, oh my God, what's happening? Because you never know, when they are teenagers, some of them think of very stupid things like suicide because they are depressed, or they are dating and they make babies before time, things like this. I was afraid of that, but I went with an open heart. When I got there, it was just this: the boy wanted to tell me he was gay, and that he had looked up to me as a role model because of the way I treated him.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I was so happy. And then he said, you know what? I told my mother about you. She was amazed. And then she wanted to read more because I had written a book on my experience coming out of the closet. I had a straight marriage before. I had 2 children. And then he gave the book to his mother. His mother was one, she was, how can I say? She was wondered too, but she was inspired, that's the word, and opened her heart even more to the conversation that he was having with her. Later on, she also told his father about the son's homosexuality. And now he's studying architecture. He went abroad to study in Ireland. He has a boyfriend who is a stable boyfriend. They have a stable relationship. Everything's going fine in his life because he had people who welcomed him. And this is not the only one. I have plenty of experience like those, lesbian girls, gay boys. I knew a case of a transgender student who is not mine. He studied in a school nearby. He was assigned the female sex at birth, and the female gender to the female sex came with nature, but the female gender was socially assigned. And later on, he came out as transgender. He became recognized as a transgender boy, and the school accepted giving him or using his male name, treating him as male all the time. And then I took advantage of that conversation by a student of mine to discuss transgender issues in class. It was amazing.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And he was not my student, but you see, students are bringing things by themselves because they know they are safe enough to say them. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. I always tell my students that we are going on to 2018, and this is the moment, this is the right moment when the Brazilian society is ready to be discussing this kind of issues, so this is when that's why everything is happening at this time,
And sometimes even soap operas help, like the global network soap opera, that there was a transgender boy. I couldn't see the soap opera because I was working at the time, so I don't really remember names, etc. But there was a boy who was transgender, and because of that boy, the issue came up many times. And that's when you can talk about gender, but you can also talk about sexuality, because they are not the same, but go hand in hand.
Exactly, exactly. So that's it, Sergio. Thank you very much. Let me just see if there are any questions. No questions for you. It was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us for the second time at the Broad Queer Day. Wonderful, Sergio.
Thank you, sis. Bye-bye.
Bye.